Hello, everyone. I am back from the United States. I'm back home in Kenya, and there's a bunch of announcements I have to make. Some coming soon. But first thing I wanted to keep in your forefront is that the 13-week mentorship course enrollment for that closes on May 2nd. May 2nd is the last day for you to sign up for that. And I'll tell you this, don't sign up for that if you're looking for one specific technique, one specific ability. Don't sign up for that if it's just about height or the fear of missing out. Don't disrespect me, the course, or yourself by doing that. Save your money, please. That course is for those of you whose spirit has led to be my student, that I'm actually called to be your mentor, and that's the role I'm meant to play. You are going to learn a lot from me in a bunch of other fronts. There's a lot on YouTube, there's a lot on Patreon. You're going to learn here. So don't join just because you want to tap into more information. Join if you're going to participate this time, do it because spirit has told you that this is where you're supposed to be, and I'm just one step amongst many within your journey. And again, last day to sign up for that is May 2nd. I'll send, you'll get an email on May 3rd. All of you who signed up, you'll get an email on May 3rd. That'll give you all the information that you need. There's information in the confirmation page. So just wanted to leave that there. Let's just say I have a bunch of other courses coming up for you soon. Some things y'all have been asking me for, but to be announced. I'll leave that where it is. So today I want to talk to you about spirituality and what spirituality actually is versus what pop culture has made it out to be or is trying to make it out to be. What you'll notice when you compare me to other spiritual teachers, I get lumped into a lot of categories and a lot of communities that I don't actually consider myself in. Some consider me part of the conscious communities. The Christians still claim me. The Christian mystics claim me. I'm currently lumped in with the OBE community. And something that's kind of normal is that you start to compare the people that you're listening to in the communities that you're in. And regardless of what community that you've placed me in, you notice that I'm the one that sticks out. I don't really fit into any of the boxes. At moments, I resemble some, at other times, another. That's because I'm very honest about being outside of all of the factions. I'm not in the faction war. So, with that being said, my experiences and the way that I go about relaying information, revelation, and wisdom is different from other teachers, especially in this modern internet age. I am not a regurgitator. In fact, I very well encourage you all not to do that. I strongly discourage regurgitation, even within my own community. I have never wanted to raise up a people whose only spiritual progress was their ability to repeat what they heard me say. I stand as an inspiration to you all that when you hear about the things that I've been able to access, that you find yourself in it. Not putting me on a pedestal of saying, oh, he can do that. So if I ever need that, I go to him. But instead saying, if I can do it, you can do it. Me and Yeshua get along in that regard, and that I don't consider you my competition. I might be a few grades ahead of you. Let's say everyone starting out is in kindergarten. I claim to be a second grader. I'm just a few grades ahead, so I understand where you're at more than anything. Now, to address spirituality as a whole, I address the community. Let's talk about spirituality. Spirituality is the culture of spirits and engaging spirits in the spirit world. I'm going to say something very simple, but very controversial at the same time. But understand me as I say it. You cannot have spirituality without spirits. In a culture, a modern society that wants to conscious talk you to death and quantum talk you to death, it is important to remember that the requirement is in the word. Spirituality requires spirits. So if you are not engaging spirits at all, it is not spirituality. And that's important. Even when we start to develop ourselves spiritually, it gives us a new focus. And this is why you'll notice that I skip over and I devalue or undervalue certain parts that other people may emphasize. Some of you have been with me for years, and I don't really talk about the chakras that much. I don't talk about meditation that much because I recognize, as helpful as they don't have much to do with your spirituality because they engage different parts of your triune anatomy. There's some things that help the body, there's some things that help the soul, and there's some things that really fortify you within the spirit or connect you to other spirits. Controversial, but true. Fasting does not lead you into encounters with God. You are not guaranteed an encounter simply because you fast. That's not really how that works. Fasting will not help you hear God either. Fasting is not really a way to activate spiritual senses because they're not connected. Fasting is a physical exercise that engages your physical body and it helps to purge things out of you. It gives your body time to process the things within itself that, let's just say, have either overstayed their welcome or should not be there at all. On a metaphysical standpoint, when you start to deal with the electromagnetic makeup of the human body, now we can talk some quantum stuff. You begin to engage your body as a archetype of the universe, a microcosm of the universe, where Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of sound, light, frequency, and vibration. Well, the laws of the body are exactly the same. So when you're fasting and you're actually doing it well, it's an exercise in controlling energy, but electromagnetism specifically. Because when you're not feeding normally, your body still eats. And if you use it the right way, you actually learn how to feed on light. You learn how to feed on energy. If you're really good, you get to pull on some of those higher energies. But at the very least, it's electromagnetism is what you're engaging, which is all physical. It's important to know this because in this, I'm might be stepping on some toes. This might be confusing, might be jarring, but the whole point is to refocus you so that you're not wasting your time on stuff that really doesn't add value to your spirituality specifically. Your diet, your physical diet doesn't affect you spiritually at all. It might affect the physical health, your physical health. It may even affect your soul. But your spirit is so perfect, it doesn't actually require a physical diet for that. No, 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 not at all. So, no, you don't have to become a vegan or a vegetarian. You don't have to stop eating meat. Those are other reasons to do that. At least you don't have to stop doing that or have a certain diet for spirituality. Again, that might work better for you on a physical level. That might help you physically. Some people do well on fruits and vegetables. Some people need meat. Bodies are different. Point I'm emphasizing is that it has nothing to do with your spirit. Meditation, the chakras, engaging your soul. Notice you don't hear me talk about consciousness all too much. That's because I understand that consciousness has nothing to do with spirit. I'm talking to you about a world higher than what may be familiar. Did you know that there comes a point, just as when we deal with the physical world, we deal with the universe, the multiverse, we're dealing with spectrums of electromagnetism. And electromagnetism rules the natural world. But when you go into the astral plane, though it is there, it doesn't rule anymore. Light is the currency of the physical world. Consciousness is, or information is, the currency of the astral plane. Consciousness rules the soul, but it has no merit in the spirit world. Spirit world operates by what is. It operates from source. It operates from abundance. It is a creator's space. So it's not even receiving. So even when you start to engage your own spirit, you're not engaging a part of yourself that's still in need. You're engaging the part of yourself that is supplying to the rest of yourself. And should you connect with that part of yourself, you actually begin to function as a supply chain, ushering in the principles of heaven, spiritual attributes, and giving them to the earth. It really gives you a better picture of that on earth as it is in heaven thing. You begin to channel yourself. Now, I have a personal beef with a lot of channelers because they're scamming you. I find it hard to believe that someone who has no intimacy with an entity can speak on behalf of said entity. You have to understand the law of vesselship. The law of oracleship is that oracles have to live a surrendered and empty life in accordance with the protocols and principles of the entity that they're connected to. So I find it interesting that there's so many people who have no intimacy with Yeshua, with all these other entities that can all of a sudden channel a message for them. And if you notice, a lot of the messages don't carry anything of substance. It's just the same stuff you're used to hearing in more modern, new age, metaphysical community. You're going to hear about a new age emerging. You're going to hear about frequency and vibration. You're going to hear about a great awakening. You're going to hear about you're going to hear a lot of the same stuff. And that's because it's astral. It's not actually spiritual either. But I'll pick on the channelers in another session, maybe. The point of that is even to show where you're drawing your information from. Sources matter. That a thing. See, just like in religion, people can be caught up in the manifestation of a thing and miss the spirit or the consciousness behind a thing. That you're looking at the fact that correct information is coming out, but you're not looking on where that correct information is coming from. Is this person just very studied in a certain community? Is this person just repeating what they have heard or relaying what they think you want to hear? Is this something coming from an actual entity, whether it be astral, whether it be quantum, whether it be an actual spirit? This is where that discerning of spirits things come in, because it actually helps you know what you're looking at, what's behind what you're looking at. Because that's really a plague within the spiritual community, is that we have the jargon, yet none of the value, none of the fruit, none of the real benefits. So you have people who are ready to blurt out the correct answer and don't know why or if it's even right. So you have people say, oh no, God is one, and they've never met God, have no encounters with God, yet they have a theology, they have a philosophy. I believe that whatever philosophy or theology you've built should come from your own encounters, not from a collective. Truth isn't a democracy. It is. Meaning that something doesn't become true simply because enough people currently believe it. This is why we have such words as remnants. This is why we have the word heretic. Heretic doesn't mean someone who is wrong, someone who's teaching something false. That's not what heretic means. Heretic, in its definition, means someone teaching something other or believing something other than what the masses believe. It speaks to quantity, not quality. So what I'm saying here is truth doesn't operate that way. I'm someone that believes that the encounter you have with the divine is valuable. That is a principal thing. That's something that you can rely on. That's something that you can trust. That's something that you can and should lean into, with or without someone else's help. Even the Bible that so many of us get our beliefs from, even if you hate the Bible, you left Christianity, most of you still have your beliefs around the Bible. And that book, mainly, if we back up and look at it just on a baseline level, it's a collection of other people's encounters. Now, if you're willing to believe that they had those encounters, that they could have an encounter, the very least that you should be able to get from the Bible is that you should be able to have those too. You should be able to have an encounter. If you believe that someone 2,000 years ago was able to encounter angels and saints and even encounter the royal family directly, you too should be able to allow yourself to experience that. Now, the reason why you're not is because of a lot of the things that I've mentioned here today. You're focused on your physical health and you're focused on your soul's health, and you're not actually tapping into your spirit. You're still trying to earn it. You're stuck in an ascension trap, trying to earn your way to something that was already given to you, trying to gain access to something you already have access to. You already are body, soul, and spirit. You're just used to living from your body and getting your soul and spirit to serve your body. So you're misaligned, you're out of focus. What I and other teachers like myself will have you do is, instead of focusing on your body and getting your spirit and soul to serve your body, you begin to live from your spirit and let that part of yourself, that divine aspect of yourself, rule and reign the rest of the system, and then begin to imprint itself in creation. Because I very much agree with Albert Einstein when he says that a problem cannot be solved from the same level that created the problem. So if baseline humanity is the cause, let's say that it takes us being truly divine and awakened for us to solve a lot of these problems, and these problems can be solved. See, the thing about darkness, the thing about death, the thing about deception is that they don't exist on their own. They're absences. They exist when other principles are not present. Death is the absence of life. Deception is an absence of truth. Darkness, absence of light. You're not dealing with something that is a force of its own. You're looking at the absence of a thing. So when we watch deception spread in the world, we watch darkness cover the world, you watch death run rampant. It's not because death is so big. It's not because darkness is so massive. It's not because deception is so powerful. It's just that their opposites are not present. And that's, again, part of that is our own trap. You're still trying to access truth instead of live from the truth that you're birthed from. You're still trying to access what you have access to. You're trying to become God when you already are. You're trying to worship the right God instead of be the right God. So our efforts, though genuine, though sincere, are misaligned more times than not. So we miss out on some things. So just to line this up, right? When I talk about my relationship with the royal family, that doesn't come from my Christian background. I divorced it. It just so happens that Christians don't have a copyright on Yeshua, nor do the Black Hebrew Israelites. It just so happens that these spirits, who I call the royal family, whether you want to call them the Elohim, the Anunnaki, the Necheru, actually exist because they are spirits. They just exist in another world. And what I'm teaching you to do is to build a relationship with them, to actually have encounters with them, to have your own experiences with them. I don't really care if y'all believe mine. My goal isn't to wow you. If you noticed, I'm not a flashy person. I don't run my ministry off of the hype, the wow factor. I don't really do that. If I did, there'd be a lot more stories I'd tell y'all. I would have blown up on YouTube a lot sooner if I was after followers and wowing you, but I don't. I intentionally withhold. In fact, part of the dissonance that y'all can feel within me, for those of you who can discern that it feels like I'm holding back, is because I am. Functioning at this level of awakening isn't actually fun. I'm not at a stage where I'm trying to attain a certain level of divine consciousness or divine awareness. I have that and have had it for years. I'm at a point in my life where I'm clinging to my humanity. I've heard stories. There are stories you can find of other saints and other mystics from the past experiencing a similar thing. Ramakrishna gave himself an addiction to food just so he could cling to his humanity. So let's just say this awakening that so many of you are after, because of the hype, because of the peer pressure within certain spiritual communities, isn't necessarily fun. It's the beginning of a thing. I don't even necessarily consider it a benchmark. It's a start. It's the baseline of knowing who you are. Knowing who you are isn't the whole thing. That's where you start at. You know who you are, then you do and you behave from where you are, from what you are. You embody it. So, again, talking about spirituality, that involves living and embracing yourself as spirit, operating from your spirituality. One of the things the Bible says is that the sons of gods are those who are led by the Spirit. That is a powerful principle. It's in you being led by the Spirit that you tap into that sonship code, you tap into your divinity, and you tap into the access that you've already been walking in. Here's the thing about eternity. You're already in it. You're not gonna get it. You didn't leave it. Eternity is an always. It's not past, it's not future, it's an ever-present thing. So when I talk about your eternal identity, I'm not talking about someone you will be. I'm not talking about something that you used to be. It's something that you are right now. You just lost awareness of it. So consider me someone similar to Rafiki in Lion King beating you over the head saying, remember who you are. Not remember who you used to be, not remember who you're going to be, become something new. I'm not trying to get you to become something new. I think you're perfect already. I think you're God already. What I'm trying to do is get you to see you from that place, to live from that place. And that's the spiritual aspect. If your spirit, your actual spirit is not involved, you can't call it spirituality. You have soul sciences, sacred soul sciences that you can get that work, that are beneficial for the soul. We'll talk about that another time. There's a lot that you can get. Even the supernatural isn't limited to spirits. A lot of manifestations can happen from the natural realm, mastery over the natural and the five elements, the cosmic forces, the elemental forces, nature, spirit, and the like. There's a lot that you can do just from embodying and understanding the mechanisms of the physical world. And then there's a lot that you can do with the soul. People ask me, what's the difference between a psychic and a prophet? A prophet gets their abilities from spirit. A psychic is someone or something that's able to perceive and utilize the soul or the soul plane or the astral plane. It's just a difference in realm. It's a difference in depth. It's a difference in height. Not necessarily mechanic. They're both seeing, they're both perceiving, they're both flowing, they're both channeling. It's about where they're from, not necessarily what they're doing. And psychics aren't even necessarily evil. They're just perceiving from a different place. Just so happens we do have a lot of predatory psychics today. And Christianity demonizes just about everything. They demonize each other. Now, the other facet is the intimacy part, the actually building relationship with other entities, angels, saints, members of the royal family. Again, your encounters with them supersedes philosophies about them. Some people are afraid of the Elohim. They're afraid of the royal family because they've been taught a version of metaphysical history that makes them more predatory. So when I mention the word Anunnaki, you instantly think Star Wars and you think of slavery and you think of all this other stuff because that's how a certain way of looking at the story is presented. And let's just say most people haven't read those stories themselves. It gets a bit more complicated. Most people have heard other people's accounts and retellings and regurgitations of something that the last 10 people in the lineage haven't read. And beyond reading, there's actually encountering. I've met them. I teach y'all to meet them. So many people, right, from the last almost year now, been taking people into the heavens and leading them into face-to-face relationship and face-to-face encounters. They've gotten to meet the royal family themselves. And what they experience is overwhelming joy, overwhelming love, overwhelming bliss, amongst other things. They're not meeting this predatory people that certain people make them out to be. This is where you let your encounter with a thing change your perspective. Just like people, there's people that you heard things about before you got to know them. And once you got to know them, you're like, oh, you're nothing like what they told me. Whether one way or the other. Maybe they told you they were a good person. You met them and they were wicked. Maybe they told you they were wicked. You met them and they were the most loving people you've ever met. The point that I'm emphasizing is that encounter matters first. So for this to be spirituality, you have to get used to spirits. And to negate something that I hear said all the time in conscious communities, specifically like the Black conscious community, is that they'll call it a European mindset. They'll call it Abrahamic. When you start to talk about the supernatural, miracle signs, wonders, and things of the like. And even to that, I want you to know that Africans believed in the supernatural first. The supernatural, the unexplainable, was ours first. We didn't learn that from Abrahamic religions. We already had that. It wasn't until the scientific revolution around the time of Sir Isaac Newton that the consensus became that no matter what the problem is, the answer is never allowed to be supernatural. You can never say spirits did it. You can never say spirits are the reason or the cause behind it. Even when they are. People have been having encounters with actual spirits, actual angels, actual entities for forever. Even the charts that we use, charting out the stars, charting out, our astrology. They look at the Dogon people who've said for eons, the stuff that scientists at NASA are just now starting to say, hey, this is proven. The Dogon said that, and they said entities came out of the water and taught that to them. Oh, no, there's no entities that live underwater. Why? Believing or experiencing something beyond human is kind of necessary for authentic spirituality. If you want it to be spirituality, you have to get used to spirits. You have to get used to other spirits. You have to get used to being spirit. You have to get used to fellowshipping with spirits, which means you have to let go of fear. Fear is one of the major boundaries as to why many of you don't have as many visual encounters, because you're terrified of something actually appearing, and they know that, so they don't. On the flip side, you have the ego in the way where you're looking for a certain presentation of truth, whether from a teacher or from the divine, and you say in your heart, your little arrogant head, if it doesn't appear this way, it's fake. I don't want it. So there's so much truth. There's so many encounters. There's so many realms that you miss out on just because you try to tailor make it. I want you to understand that the spirit world is not westernized. It's not convenient, meaning that you don't really get to customize it all too much. Either you see it for what it is, or you fall victim to deception, which is what begins to happen in really all the organized religions. They create a facet of the divinity that they like, and they make that the rule, and they pretend that that entity has to fit within the box that they made up. So you can visit, I'm from the Bible Belt originally. We have a church on every block. You can go into every church on a Sunday, visit 16 churches, and you will hear 16 different things about the same supposed person. And they might all be completely different, not because they're sharing unique revelation, but because they all have a different level of what they're willing to allow God to be in their life. That doesn't limit divinity. That limits them in their experience of divinity. So I want you to know that many of you are limited, not because the royal family doesn't want to meet with you, but because you've put limitations on what they're able to be around you. And they're just choosing not to respect that, and they're not showing up. Some people ask me, why did I get to have the encounters that I had? And the best answer I can give y'all is that I was open for what is. I didn't have any preconceived notions. I didn't have a point to prove. I wanted an encounter. I wanted to see what was real. So when I met Yeshua, I wasn't trying to prove whether he was black, whether he was white, what he looked. I didn't care. I just wanted to see him for what he was. I'm like, I know you're a spirit. Even before you became human, even after you left, you went. I I know you're a spirit. So let me see what you look like as a spirit. Therefore, I saw him, and that form looks strikingly similar to Krishna. Cosmic blue with fiery blue eye. He looked like a nebula in human form. First time I met him, eventually he did show up in more human forms. And yeah, but the point of me sharing that is just to say that I experienced him outside of filters because I had none in the way. I didn't need him to appear. I got beyond the point of fear because when you're dealing with spirits, anything can pop up. I don't know. He could terrify me. I got to the point where I was like, I want to see you. I want to experience you. I want to know what's true more than I want to be comfortable. So I've seen Mother God in a few ways that are quite terrifying because I let her be as she is. I'm not trying to fit her into any specific boxes. Same with the Father. I don't pick what I want them to be and then visualize it. I expressly teach all of you not to visualize when doing my exercises. I don't teach you to use your imagination. I don't teach you to sanctify your imagination and then use your imagination. I don't do that. I teach you to be focused. I teach you to know what you want, to be intentional, but not to imagine anything, because when you're imagining, you're painting a picture instead of perceiving. So I'd rather you take your time and perceive. And when you do see it, when you do gain some level of perception of it, you can trust it rather than wrestling forever on, is this real or is this my imagination? You don't use the imagination here, not for that. So if you want to launch yourself into spiritual capabilities, begin to honor the encounters that other people are having that you're not, and then begin to honor what you are having. Let go of however way you want God to show up. However you want the royal family to appear. Oh, I want them to be like this. Oh, I want them to be like that. Yeah, when I meet them, they're going to do this for me. Yeah, no, just meet them and see. Get to know them, experience them, and learn from there. So that's all I got for y'all today. I'm going to leave y'all with that. As usual, you can find everything about me, my courses, classes, events, all the rest. Everything can be found on my website, including one-on-one sessions. caveofmystery.org. So that's it. Again, 13-week mentorship course. Enrollment closes May 2nd. That is it. You miss it, you miss it. After that, we'll probably get into the healer's course. But that's all. Until next time, y'all be blessed. Later.